Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly developer diary. So for this week I've actually got a little bit of programming to show you, as well as I'll talk through how Tranzfuser's application stuff's going. So first of all, as you know, I've got this overworld scene that is you can walk around, when you walk in the long grass there's a 1 in 10 chance that it'll say, you've encountered an enemy. And I've got a basic dialogue system where if I talk to an NPC, it won't let me, move away at all until I finish talking with them. So I can't initiate dialogue and then just walk off without finishing it, type of thing. So I already had that in the previous weeks, but for this week I finally bit the bullet and made a start on the actual battle system. So as of now, it's very basic, but it's a foundation that I think I can easily build upon. So here, if I just run it as now, as you can see, finally getting some of these art assets I've had for ages in the game. Right now I've got a player unit and an enemy unit, and essentially I have these two buttons right here that will trigger different actions. So what happens is if I press attack, as you can see, it's dealt 10 damage to him, and then he then does his turn. So the way this works is it has different states. So the first state is the setup state, where it will create the enemy and create the player, as well as hook up the enemy and the player to the UI. So this UI will always show whatever this unit is called. So if I change the name of this enemy type to be something else, for example, if this wasn't named Patchy and was named Triceratops, for example, and then I reloaded it, it would then have a different name. So essentially the battle state, once it's done the setup state, it then transitions to the player turn, where I can choose right now 1 or 2 actions. I can do attack, which I've just done, or I can do heal. If I heal, you've healed for 5, and then he attacks, and he's done some damage. So after the player turn, it transitions to the enemy turn, who he's just done damage, and now he's done his attack, I can attack again. As you can see, if I spam click, no, it won't work. It has to wait for him to do his attack. So if I'm just spam clicking heal, as you can see, you heal once and then it does the enemy turn, so you can't just spam it and then instant kill the enemy, for example, which is a bug I had in the first time I ever made turn-based combat. But as you can see, once the enemy is defeated, it'll trigger a win state, which means, oh, you won the battle, and then all I do is, once it's triggered this win state, it then transition back to the overworld. And then if it was the lost state, it would then transition back to the overworld, but then it might trigger a, return the player back to a checkpoint, for example, because you've just lost a battle. So this is the basic battle system I've got as of now, but I think there's definitely a lot. What I want to change on this now is essentially make it so it's when I press the attack button, instead of doing a flat, 10 damage, I want that to then trigger a animation for the player. So it'll trigger an animation of the player going to, for example, swing a sword, and you having to time clicking the attack button with that sword swing in order to, or time pressing a key in order to maximize that damage. So right now, it's just when you click that button on the player turn, it'll inflict 10 damage. But now I want to sort of take that and turn it into a sort of timing-based mini-game inside the battle. As I've talked about, having it be somewhat similar to Mario and Luigi or Paper Mario style, action timings in combat. And then for the heal, so for my idea for the attack being a melee attack, either with a sword or an axe or a spear, for example, being that you have to time it. Whereas for the heal, because I don't want every single, a decent amount of them I want to be timing things. For the heal, I think a good idea, I like the idea for the heal being that the animation for the player being they pull out a potion and start shaking it, and then to go with the shaking, I think having to mash a specific key would work quite well for that. So for example, if it was, right now it heals 5 health all the time, but instead of healing 5 health, if it was, for each 5 times you press a key during the, during the, I don't know, the 5 seconds of animation, each 5 times you press this key, it increases the healing by 1, for example. There'd probably be like a hard cap on it, but something along those lines I think could work quite well for the heal. And another thing I also want to change is right now this enemy will, no matter what, always just do a attack on the player that'll deal damage. I want to do the opposite for the enemy, where they do an animation where they go to attack the player and the player has to do another time-based thing to sort of block their attack, is what I want. So those are the next things I want to try and work on. But as of now, this is a very basic battle system, but the way I've programmed it is very expandable, so I think I can easily expand upon this, which is good. So as for the coming week, I'm definitely going to try and work on this and try and get it to have a lot more of these timing based stuff, using a lot of like enumerators, which are essentially, like, for people that don't know, well, this probably won't work if you don't know programming, but they're essentially functions that are based on like timings, essentially. So using a lot of them, it is essentially how it will work. But yeah, that's the battle system so far. So other than that, I've also been doing some work on my games research assistant job, which has been going really well, and I think I might be, nothing concrete yet, I might be working on that for, it was originally meant to finish in like May. I think they might be extending my time working on it to maybe July, which could be really good. Just gives me a bit more work experience, which is nice. And then other than that, I've literally just finished the written application for Tranzfuser, which was mainly just filling out a lot of forms on the scope of the Soulbound project, as well as basically talking about why we want to do Tranzfuser and what we hope to have finished after it. But I think the written application went really well, so for this coming week for that, we're going to be creating the pitch video for it. But yeah, that's everything in terms of the Tranzfuser side. Well, I think that's everything in general, actually. So yeah, as for the coming week, working on this battle system, and hopefully it'll have at least 1 or 2 of those basic timing elements that I want to have in the finished game. Because as for the overworld, the only other main thing I want to get implemented, or that's something I can actually talk about, is for my games research assistant role, I use something called Timeline, which is essentially like creating like cutscene animations using these sprites for it, which I hadn't done Timeline before, but I learned how to use Timeline and create animations with that, which was really handy, because with that now in the overworld, I think I could pretty easily, or well, somewhat easily, create some like cutscene animations. So for example, in that I've made like a basic animation where it's like, a player character walking up to another player character, and then like a cutscene of the two of them talking. So I could do some basic cutscenes like that using Timeline, which I think was a really useful skill to learn. So I might try and incorporate some of that next week, although I am going to be mainly focusing on the battle systems. I think that's the thing that needs the most attention right now. But yeah, I think that's everything for this week. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all next week. Alright, peace.